Could you talk a little bit about how Agent Pendergast was created? Because he is such a unique character.
Well, it's a strange thing. I'm not sure I really understand how he was created. I was writing the first chapters for Relic, and I sent the chapters to Link. They did not have Agent Pendergast in them. And he looked them over and he said, Doug, this is missing a special detective, a unique person. And I said, oh, Link, you mean like an albino from New Orleans or something? I was making a joke. And he said, yeah, something like that. And we started talking about our detective, and this man just materialized in front of us, sort of like Athena from the forehead of Zeus, fully formed. And that was Pendergast. And we never wrote a backstory for him. We never wrote down his whole history or his family tree or anything like that. He simply is there, and we know very little about him. We know who he is, but we know very little about his backstory. He's a very closed character. I'm speaking about him as if he's a real person, and he is to me much more real than many allegedly real people that I know. I just feel that I know him very well, but he's very stingy with his information. We wrote 3 novels before we even knew his first name.
What are some of the benefits and challenges of writing collaboratively?
Well, the benefits are very considerable. Writing is a very lonely business. You're doing it all by yourself. You have no one really to bounce ideas off of. With a writing partner, you have someone to commiserate with, someone to talk to. I can brainstorm with Lincoln. We both have similar kind of somewhat twisted minds, so we often try to outdo each other in one thing or another. So it's a lot of fun to write a book with a writing partner. The unpleasant part of it is you get rewritten. And I can't stand it when Lincoln rewrites my deathless prose. I get really furious. And so I'll rewrite his deathless prose, and that'll make him mad. And so we take revenge on each other that way. And somehow the kind of difficult collaborative process results in a book or in a prose style that seems to work.
So when you're writing this together, how do you come up with the steady voice?
Well, we don't, we've been told that our voice is seamless, that no one can tell when Link's voice ends and my voice begins and vice versa. And that's sort of the way we like it. We really rewrite each other very, very heavily. We'd never have stood on ceremony or played the artiste with each other. We really, if Lincoln tells me that a chapter I've just written stinks, I may not like to hear that, and I may get pissed off, but it stinks. I have to trust him. That's the only way a partnership can work, is if you actually trust and believe that the other person is right, even if you feel in your heart that they're wrong. I know I have phrases that I thought, this is the most brilliant phrase ever written in the English language, and I send the chapter off to Link, and that's the first thing he cuts out. And then I say, Link, how could you cut that out? Oh, Doug, that was terrible. I'm saving you from embarrassment. Well, I have to accept that. That's why I have a partner. That many writers struggle with what they call writer's block, or difficulty in writing, lack of confidence. And I've had it. Every writer has it. I don't know of any writer who has escaped that, except perhaps Isaac Asimov. But the way I deal with it is I never, ever just give up and do something else. I sit in my office. I keep trying to write. Even if what's coming out is complete garbage, I just keep going. And even if I know by the end of the day I'm going to throw it all out, I'm not going to give myself a break and say, oh man, I'm going to quit early today, I've had enough. I think if you start quitting early and you start, you're letting the writer's block overcome you. Hemingway, he had a drinking problem, and he'd often get up in the morning and be so hungover he could barely stand up. But he would still put in his 4 hours, even if all he did was stare at the paper with a throbbing headache. He would not allow himself to take a break just because he had a hangover. Now, fortunately, I don't have hangovers, but I have similar bad days, and you just plug away, and eventually the log jam breaks, and the writing starts flowing again.
Well, what advice would you give to someone who wants to become a published writer?
Well, first of all, I'd say you have to write. It's like anyone who says, I want to become I want to play Mozart in Carnegie Hall on the violin. I would say, well, you should probably practice the violin a lot. And to a writer who wants to write, I would say, well, I think you need to write a lot. Writing is a skill just like any other. The idea that you're somehow born with it, I think is somewhat of a fallacy. I think it is true that some people have more talent than others, but I think a person with perfectly adequate talent, through sheer guts and determination and effort, can really improve themselves and become very good writers. But it takes a lot of work. Someone once asked Bach, how did you become such a great composer? How did you do it? Bach said, if you worked as hard as I have worked over my lifetime composing, you'd be as good a composer as I am. And I kind of feel that's the same about writing.